Well, good evening, friends. Welcome once again to Syracuse Football Postgame. It is presented by Krause Health. We're coming off the heels of a big blowout win, as expected, for Syracuse football. But a little boo-boo by Dino Babers is going to hang over this one. But Syracuse wins 59-0. Now, they did cover the spread. However, I don't think you're going to get the payout on this one, friends. Maybe you guys can comment on this and let me know if it's happened to you. In the second half of this game, I've never seen this before. It's happened a few times in recent memory. My friend Chris Peak, who covers Pittsburgh, made me aware of this, that Pittsburgh and Austin Peay did this a couple years ago. Syracuse and Wagner went to 10-minute quarters in the second half of the game. So we had a nice, tidy, about 2.5-hour football game, which was going at a crisp pace as it was. They go to 10-minute quarters, basically the mercy rule in college football, and Syracuse wins 59-0. They were 53, 54-point favorites, depending on which for entertainment purposes only service you go with here. That can be taken off the board, though, with the 10-minute quarters in the second half of this game. So that goes as expected. Garrett Schrader was literally perfect in this game, 17 of 17, 238 yards. Sean Tucker with a career-high 232 yards on the ground. But it was a decision by Dino Babers to leave Sean Tucker and some other starters, Schrader included, on the field in the second half, which is inexplicable. It's wrong, and I can't even think and fathom a reason why you would do that, especially considering that Tucker twice before has gone down. Against Louisville, last week against Virginia, it happened again. Dino Babers played with fire, and he almost got burned. Now, thankfully, Tucker seemed okay. He went in the medical tent. He was on the sideline, walking, smiling, had his helmet. So nothing serious happened there. He's got an injury that requires that. I don't know if he's got a lower leg thing that's tightening up or what the case is there. But he should not have been on the field in the second half. That is inexplicable that Dino Babers would do that. I have not seen postgame yet. As we're talking here, Dino Babers has not come to the podium or is about to come on the podium. I'll try and keep an eye on Twitter to see what he says about this, because he better be asked about that at postgame. I will put it to you that way in that situation. But you can't put him on the field. I think maybe he might have been out there because he was approaching Joe Morris's single game record. But that is a major blunder in what was otherwise a game where Syracuse goes to 5-0 for the first time since 1987, which is incredible. They're going to be in the AP Top 25 next week. And if you don't put Syracuse on your AP Top 25, you shouldn't have a vote. Plain and simple at this point. They have more wins against Power 5 teams than I think anybody but Florida State. They had a convincing 59-0 win against a team that, they could have beat much further if they kept the pedal down in this one. That's a ranked team. Oklahoma lost, Minnesota lost, a couple teams at the bottom of the poll lost. You have no excuse to not put Syracuse and Kansas, by the way, who moved to 5-0 in your poll today. So let's get some of your comments going here. As always, thanks for hopping in. Thanks for watching. I always appreciate your comments. And let's see what you're saying off the bat here. Then we'll give you some numbers from an eye-popping win from Syracuse. Otherwise, Chris just pops up the heart emoji there. Michael says he's got to get the starters out of the game. Could not agree with you more. Antonio says it was painful to watch. Dino not taking the starters out at halftime was unacceptable, especially Tucker, because it has happened. This was not one of those woulda, coulda, shoulda type of things. This was not one of those, it's football, it's a rough game. No, Tucker has gone down twice so far this year. And he's gotten it out. He's out there playing. The dude had 227 yards at halftime. Did his job. 3 touchdowns. Back in rhythm. Got him out there. Now get him the hell off the field, because look at the second half of that schedule. You got NC State, Clemson, Notre Dame, Pitt, Wake Forest. A lot of those teams ranked or just flat out good, very physical teams. You need Sean Tucker at his absolute best. You cannot play with fire. They did it. And he nearly got burned. He nearly got burned there. This is not one of those, it's football, it happens. No. If he put him back out there to try and get Joe Morris's record, that is inexplicable. That is inexcusable. And that is a major blunder on Babers' part. There's just no other way around that. Tim says, never heard of that, but makes sense. We're talking about the 10-minute quarters in that situation. I've never seen that. Lee makes a good point here. Missed an opportunity to get Carlos Del Rio Wilson some work. LaQuint Allen did get out there. He had what was that, a 90-yard run, nearly took it to the house. So some backups definitely played. Okay. Backups got in, second-tier guys got in. That was accomplished. It's not like that didn't happen. It did. But I could not believe when I kind of had my head down starting to write some stuff, and I was watching the game on my iPad, and I look up and I'm like, oh, there's a player down. I'm like, holy crap, that's Sean Tucker. Like, what is he doing in the game? Like, so frustrating to see that. That's just a major, major mistake on Baber's part. Thankfully, everything seems okay, but you just cannot play with fire like that. Dale says Wagner, just outclassed. No disrespect on that. Skyler, will we move up in the rankings after a blowout? They'll move up in the coaches poll. They will move into the AP poll. And again, if they didn't, that's just a joke if they don't. Wagner is not Division I, Tim. They are an FCS level opponent, and a bad one at that. And frankly, a one that Syracuse should not schedule. Everybody schedules a Patsy. Everybody schedules an FCS team. But Wagner has lost now 24 straight games. They haven't won a game this decade. They were clearly outmatched physically in this game. Thankfully, nobody got hurt seriously on that team. I mean, they should not have been on the field. This was like a varsity team playing a Pop Warner team. It was a joke that Syracuse played this team. Stop scheduling Wagner. They don't belong on the same field. You got Colgate right down the road. You got some more respectable FCS programs around. Stop putting this team on the schedule, especially in Game 5. I mean, that's just how it worked out schedule-wise. But, I'm a little more frustrated after a 59-0 win than we should be at this point. But, a couple of things that stand out there. Antonio says the goal line offense a little concerning. Wagner stood them up a couple of times in short yard situations. What was concerning was penalties. Penalties continue to be a problem for this team. Syracuse had 8 penalties for 75 yards. It's the procedure stuff. It's jumping off sides. Look, you got to build in a few penalties a game. That's just football. But the rate at which this team is committing offside penalties, procedure penalties, a block in the back took away a Tucker 31-yard touchdown run. They had 13 men on the field at one point. I've never heard of that. 12 men on the field. It happens. 13 men on the field. 5 games in, pardon me. Come on. You got to clean that stuff up. That's got to be priority 1 in the bye week because the margin for error gets that thin for Syracuse in the second half. Now, here's the good news. Obviously, they're 5-0. They're 1 win from a bowl game. But when you got NC State and Clemson and I think a beatable Notre Dame team, but, not going to be an easy game by any stretch at the Dome. And all the tough games are on the back end of the schedule. All the tough games. All the ranked teams, the tough teams, the physical teams, the top of the Atlantic Division, they're all in the back half. Penalties and things like this bite you more against teams like that. So they got to shrink that down. Good news is for Syracuse, they're scoring in the red zone. Every time they get in the red zone, they're scoring. They're getting points. They had a much higher touchdown rate in the red zone in this game. So that was good. As Allison notes here, they got a pick 6 from Deuce Chestnut in that game. And even then, they got an unsportsmanlike penalty for celebration. Like, you got to clean up this stuff because you're not going to get away with it as much on the second half of the schedule, knowing how good those teams are in the second half. So you guys keep chatting here. I'm just going to throw some numbers at you here to show you just how overwhelming this thing was for Syracuse. The Orange had 26 first downs. Wagner had 4. Syracuse had 388 rushing yards in this football game, which is incredible to think about. And why am I reading my stats and all of a sudden they went blank? What in the world just happened there? As soon as I go over to my box score to read some stats, the whole thing went blank and it's gone. Okay, well, there you go. Sorry about that, folks. Now it's back. I don't know. I swear to God that happened. I'm on this other screen. Everything went blank. Everything went back to 0. Maybe they heard me complaining. Now it's back. So while we got it, let's read you some numbers here. That was really weird. Syracuse had 243 receiving yards. All told, Syracuse ran 57 plays for 631 yards. They averaged a first down a play, 11 yards per play, in contrast to Wagner, who ran 38 plays for 50 yards. They averaged 1.32 yards per play. See what I mean? Why this team shouldn't have been on the same field with Syracuse? I mean, that's a joke. Third down, Wagner 2 of 11, Syracuse 6 of 9. Syracuse, as we mentioned, had 8 penalties for 75 yards. Schrader was a perfect 17 of 17, 238 yards and 2 touchdowns. Gatson, 4 catches, 66 yards. Good to see Devon Cooper get in the end zone in this game. He had 4 catches, 64 yards. Courtney Jackson, a couple early catches. He ends up with 42. All told, 9 different receivers caught the ball for Syracuse. We mentioned Tucker, who had 23 carries, 232 yards, averaged a first down per carry, 3 touchdowns. LaQuint Allen, 4 carries, 112 yards, including a 90-yard run. And he just came up short of the end zone on that one. What a play that would have been if he got in there. So, I mean, that just goes to show you how dominant Syracuse was, and, no surprise there. So let's keep highlighting some of your comments here. As Mary Ellen says, for sure, we will know how good this team really is. William says, can we say we're going bowling yet? I mean, look, it's a 90% rate they're going bowling. If this team does not go to a bowl game, that means they lost every game on the back end. You need one win. You need one win on the back end, which is not going to be easy to pile up. If you think like this is a team that's capable of winning 8, 9, 10 games, like the 2018 team is, some tough games on the other side here. Now, as we speak, NC State and Clemson are playing. Those are your 2 next games. But look, Syracuse has set it up with an opportunity to be in the conversation. If you beat these teams straight up, to be at the top of the Atlantic Division, to possibly be in the conversation to go to the ACC championship game. And what a thing that would be. If it's not NC State or Clemson or even Wake Forest or Pitt, Pitt's on the other side of the division. But, some teams that you would stack up before Syracuse, they're in the conversation. They're going to be a ranked team. I don't think some people will bring this up. I really don't think we're going to see College Game Day come here, especially considering that Clemson hosted College Game Day today with NC State. So if you're dreaming of College Game Day in a couple of weeks, if NC State wins tonight and stays undefeated, that's just not going to happen, considering there's some other games that week that I think Game Day would go to 1 and 2. You're not going to feature the same team 2 times in 3 weeks. That rarely happens. Game Day loves to spread it out, put a little variety on the slate. So that stinks. I think the only other game on the schedule where Game Day would possibly come would be Florida State down the road, if both of those teams are either undefeated or have 1 loss and they're, kind of playing for the Atlantic Division. Florida State's still undefeated and right up there in that conversation as well, and a team that Syracuse will face on November 12th. So a while before they get there. But I wouldn't be dreaming of College Game Day coming up for a number of factors that we just said there. Clayton says, can we please just get butts in the seats? Where is everybody? The Virginia game was crowd moving in the right direction, but come on, you can get tickets for super cheap. Now, I imagine the NC State game is going to build a buzz over the next couple of weeks, particularly if NC State beats Clemson tonight. And you're going to see a much better crowd. That's going to be the biggest crowd of the year. Syracuse fans, I love you, but they're a fair weather bunch. I like to call them the fair weather 10,000. They only show up when, it's something to do. It's, there's a buzz about the team, but they've also seen a lot of bad football, Clayton, over the last 10, 15 years. So getting people to invest and go spend 4 hours there, people that have kids have to get the babysitter, the whole thing. When you have the conveniences of watching the game at home, saving money, I know the tickets are cheap, but, those are the tickets up with the Sherpas. You want to go sit in the upper deck, that's up to you. But, it's an investment for people, and it's just going to take a while to get the fair weather fans back. But, man, that NC State game, that better have a crowd of 42, 43,000. And I've been defending the people that haven't been going. But, that one kind of checks all the boxes. I think it will. I don't think that's going to be an issue, frankly, because of the buildup over the next couple of weeks. If NC State wins, we could be pushing 44, 45,000 for that game. Sean wants to know, why was Carlos Del Rio Wilson not in the game all second half? God forbid Schrader gets her, pardon me. This was the last chance for real minutes. 100%, Sean, 100%. Real minutes for your quarterback, game time minutes for your quarterback. You're saving Schrader for those games that we mentioned, did his job. We mentioned the numbers. He was perfect. He was sharp. He was finding open receivers, all good. Schrader was talking earlier this week about some wrinkles in the offense that we're going to see. You're not going to put too much out there against Wagner. Why would you, when you can save some of that for NC State coming up? But Carlos Del Rio Wilson missed out on what could have been certainly some more needed reps for him, right? Backups did get in, to be fair, but he should have played more. I agree. Axe, great to see you. The Cuse doesn't play next week. So with that said, pack the dome for the NC State game. I'll buy the seats next to my season tickets for people who want to hang and root for the Cuse with me. There's my guy, Daryl. Love the Bills helmet there too, Daryl. That's the way you do it, by the way. What you can't do if you're, and God bless you, if you're a fan, season ticket holder, you're going to games. I was hanging out with a couple of great season ticket holders last night. Shout out to my man, Dan Palladino. And I was up at Heritage Hill Brew House on Friday night, which if you're here in central New York, I cannot recommend enough. Unsolicited ad for them. They are amazing. Great spot. But dedicated fans, was talking to him and I know a guy that's going to be watching the post-game show later about that, about, going to tailgates and getting fans back. And that's what I like, the positive energy that was there. Oh, there's Michael right there. I was just talking about you, Mike. That's what we were talking about. What I liked in having a conversation with you and some other fans as of late is bring that positive energy. Don't shame people for not going. Invite them to go, right? Hey, come hang at my tailgate. We'll be here. I'm in section, whatever it is, 120. Come hang with me during the game. I'll buy you a beer, right? Like, don't shame people for not going. That doesn't work. Make them feel like they're welcome. Make them feel like, hey, come to the game. Would love to have you there. Right now, NC State, Notre Dame, especially Notre Dame, those tickets are not cheap, friends. You're going to be paying $100 to be up in the upper deck, but that's the market value you're paying for Notre Dame. I mean, Wagner, yeah, you can get in for $8 against Wagner. Notre Dame, not going to happen because Notre Dame fans will buy the tickets, and obviously that's a team that people want to see. That's way down the road at this point, but I hope that's the attitude that the fans take for the next. There's only 3 home games left. Invite people in. Don't shame them for not going. So hopefully that'll be the case. And Dan brings up a great point here. 20 years of a bad product. I don't blame the fair weather folks. Look, I grew up here my whole life. I love Syracuse fans that go and are passionate. And look, you can follow the team if you watch them on TV, or if people have lives and they're driving their kids around and doing this, that, and the other thing. And think about it. You got your phone. You can keep up with the game. You can keep track. You can follow me on Twitter, whatever it is, to keep up with it. Just, some people can only go to a couple games a year, and that's fine. But there's some juicy ones coming up. Think of the last 3, not the last 3, but the only 3 home games left. NC State, which could be, certainly a ranked matchup, but a matchup of 2 undefeated teams, but still a juicy game, even if NC State ends up losing to Clemson. Notre Dame, I don't think I need to sell you on that one. And Florida State, who right now is still undefeated, and I think will still be a pretty formidable team. Jordan Travis and company when Syracuse plays them in early November. So those are some good home games left. Frankly, Fairweather fan, other fan or not, you should be there for those games. Those are good, juicy games. Not like, look, you put Wagner on the schedule, you get what you pay for. That's a pathetic football team that should have never made that trip up here. I can't believe Syracuse is actually going to pay that team for that game. So that being said, it'll take care of itself if this team keeps winning. And guys, they're on hallowed ground. Think about all the players and all the teams since 1987 that don't have the mark that this team has today. Oh, I'm sorry, Jason. I missed that. FSU lost today. Thanks for letting me know about that. I did not see that. But, still going to be a pretty good team. So they're off the ranks of the unbeaten, but still think that's going to be a good game down the road. But thanks for letting me know about that. Now, think of all the teams and the players. Donovan McNabb was never 5-0. Dwight Freeney was never 5-0, right? Go Marvin Harrison, never 5-0. I mean, just name me anybody from 1987 on. Name any team from 1987 on. Eric Dungy almost got to 5-0. They lost by 3 to Clemson. That would have got them to 5-0. Look, this team's 5-0. That hasn't happened here since 1987. That's pretty incredible that this team did that. I think we all kind of marked a loss or two, which wasn't that crazy to think about, right? Because you got Purdue, you've got Virginia on a Friday night, Louisville in game 1, how critical that was to get. You had some name brand teams here in the first part of the schedule, but they're 5-0. 1 win from bowl eligibility, and why stop there, right? It's going to be a tough sledding on the second half of this thing, but Now what I think the conversation is going to turn to, and we're going to have time to think about it, of course, with the bye week ahead, is how high do you raise the expectations for this team, right? What are they capable of? Tough schedule on the back end, but we knew that was going to be the case. They took care of business in every way they could, close games, blowout wins. Defense won a Virginia game. Offense wins a couple of games. The games, frankly, they should, but the offense also was dominant in the Louisville game and game one of the season. Schrader looks a lot better. Hopefully Tucker gets healthy. Hopefully you get some other guys back in the lineup here that, as Dino Babers would say, have the owies at this point. Where do you now set the bar? If you were thinking maybe this was a 6-win team before the season, do you think it should be an 8 or a 9-win team? Do you feel like it should mark 10 wins when it's all said and done, like the 2018 team? Because this team's got a good quarterback. It's got a great running back. It's got an offensive line, frankly, that needs to get better, but a capable offensive line. It's got stars on defense. Mikel Jones, Marlo Wax, Deuce Chestnut, Garrett Williams, dudes, guys making plays. NFL-level players, one of the best kickers in the country. Depth. Syracuse hasn't had depth for a while, and they've lost some starters and, have some guys that are stepping in and kind of keeping things on an even keel. So something to think about. Don't have to answer that question right now. If you got the answer, great. Pop it in the chat here. But I feel like this team can raise the expectation level a little bit. Certainly, I feel like if they only win 6 games now, you can say it's a disappointment. Now, they'll go to a bowl game and nobody's getting fired or anything. And Dino has pretty much removed himself off the hot seat here. But something to ponder, right? We'll see how NC State Clemson plays out. We'll see how Notre Dame is in a month when Syracuse faces them at the end of this month. It's October, right? How high do you raise that bar? Something to ponder and think about as we go here. Merritt says Syracuse has to win in 2 weeks to justify this win. The AP might not rank us still, even after this win. Merritt, unfortunately, I agree with you. I think they'll be in the poll. I do, because Minnesota lost, Oklahoma lost, a couple of teams at the bottom of the poll opened up a spot for both Syracuse and Kansas. Syracuse should frankly be ranked over Pitt, and I could pick out a team or two that Syracuse should be in there against. But if they use the excuse that they only beat Wagner to get in, stop it. They're 5-0. You can't keep a 5-0 team with 3 Power 5 wins out of the poll. You just can't. And that's coming from someone who used to vote in the poll. And Nate Mink, I love you, buddy. Our esteemed leader and Syracuse football beat reporter, he's got an AP vote. We'll be watching, Nate. We'll be watching you. I may have to call out my own colleague if he doesn't vote for Syracuse. But what's fair is fair. You got to put him in the poll. But as Merritt said, as quickly as you get in, you can get out. But the poll is the temperature of college football this week. And if you don't think Syracuse should be amongst the top 25 teams in the country, the freaking coaches poll put him in. Pardon me. The sports information directors poll put him in. I asked Dino Babers last week if he voted for his own team. He does vote in the coaches poll. Said he couldn't answer that. They're not permitted to discuss their vote, which, by the way, that's ridiculous. As an AP voter, I could tell you my vote. I could scream it from the rooftops. Why can't the coaches reveal their vote? I think that's kind of stupid, but that's just my opinion. And Jason makes a great point here. Purdue beat Minnesota today. That's really going to help Syracuse. It makes that Purdue win more valid. Minnesota was the 21st ranked team in the country. They'll bounce out. It's all set up. So they better be in that poll tomorrow. They better be, because they deserve it. And the way these things go, if you wait until the NC State game and they lose that one and they were never in the poll to that point, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. AP voters have to wipe the slate clean every week. You can't just slide puzzle pieces up and down. Wipe the slate clean. Who are the top 25 teams in the country? And if you don't determine that Syracuse is one of them, I can't help you. I really can't. Right now, will they maintain that? Will they be that, through the second half of the schedule? That remains to be seen. If they do through that schedule, how impressive is that, given the teams that they're going to play, not only good teams, but ranked teams, good, meaty ranked teams. NC State, Clemson, Pitt is ranked right now. Wake Forest is ranked right now, or near ranked right now. They're still in the poll, right? But, bottom line is you're playing a lot of good football teams on the second half. Florida State did get into the poll. They'll probably fall out having lost today, but man, That's what I'll be thinking about the next couple of weeks, guys. There's a lot of just, remember that old Monday Night Football graphic, the helmets bashing together. There's some real helmet bashing physical football games coming up here, and it starts with NC State. So Dale with a score update here as we're live here Saturday. If you're watching this on Sunday or down the road, you'll know the result of the NC State Clemson game as we speak here live on Syracuse Football Post Game. That game is just underway. So one way or the other, those are Syracuse's next two opponents, and they're both going to be tough no matter who wins the NC State Clemson game. But man, Dino's blunder aside, by leaving Sean Tucker in that football game, to sit here and be at the bye week and be talking about a 5-0 football team, it's going to push aside the is it basketball season yet questions. The Syracuse basketball team is going to hold an event in Rochester on October 7th. If you're up here in central New York, western New York, that's going to be cool. And the basketball conversation will slowly but surely pick up, but we're not pining for it. We're not yearning for it. We're not, please, basketball, will you come? No, football is in command right now. Look, shout out, by the way, to the women's soccer team, the men's soccer team. Volleyball's doing great. Field hockey's ranked. Fall sports at Syracuse right now I think there's 5 ranked teams, including the football team. That's great. That's awesome. So, yeah, basketball, you guys can wait your turn. We'll be talking about you all winter. It's still football season. And you're like, Brent, that's silly. It's October. Of course it's football season. Well, we've all seen some seasons in recent years where even on October 1st, you're saying, is it basketball season yet? Let's go get some Christmas decorations. I didn't go to Home Depot or Lowe's today, but I'm sure they're just overwhelmed with Christmas decorations. But it's still football season. It just became fall like 3 days ago, right? So let's enjoy what we're watching here. It's a fun team to watch. The Mob podcast, the chemistry on this team. It's a good group. It's a fun group to watch. And there's a whole half of football to go here. So the Orange are in their bye week, friends. So we will not meet again here on postgame until October 15th. We will have our regularly scheduled Orange Weekly programs. We do Orange Weekly Thursdays on these same channels, Syracuse Football Facebook page, Syracuse Orange Sports on YouTube. Thursdays around noon Eastern time. So come on by for that. We'll do a little bye-week edition and kind of look ahead and just kind of take a deep breath and look at the state of Syracuse football over the next couple of weeks. Our next post-game show will come October 15th. Now, we don't know a time on that game yet. So as soon as the game's over, about 10, 15 minutes afterwards, come on back here, do the thing. If you missed the show live, you can always catch it on YouTube. I embedded in my recap on Syracuse.com. We fire it off on our social media channels. So if you can't see the show as it happens and comment as it happens, great comments as always tonight, guys. You can definitely catch replays on these channels you're watching and those other places that I mentioned. So enjoy the rest of your weekend. Syracuse got the win as expected, 59-0. But, oh, Dino, what are you doing? Leaving Sean Tucker in that football game. That's going to put a little jab into what was otherwise pretty smooth sailing for the Orange against Wagner. Thanks for watching Syracuse Football Postgame presented by Krause Health. My name is Brent Dax. We'll talk to you next time, guys. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.